Hey you guys, I just got an interesting FileMaker question. What if you have some sort of like a standard invoicing situation like I have here? I've got my clients, very simple, very basic. I've got my products. I've made just a very simple example file here. And I've got my simple invoice setup where I can select a client. I've got a few clients here. And then I can sell them a certain product, a certain amount, and so forth. So that's a very simple, very basic invoice setup. But what if I would like for my products to have different kinds of price categories? Let's say that I have different types of clients. Some clients take off large amounts, some clients take off small amounts, and instead of giving each client like a percentage discount, I would rather just have different price categories. Now, how could I do that? Well, there's different ways. You could, for instance, create a product list where you make each product a few times. You could say this is product 1 class A, and you set a price, and then you just make a bunch of products. But that's kind of annoying because then in your product list you will have every product multiple times, and that's very confusing. Plus you could make mistakes with that, because then if you go onto your invoice and you select a client of a certain class, then you could accidentally select a product from a different class, and that's a mess. We don't really want to do that. So what would be a better system? Well, a better system would be if for each product you would have like a price list for each class, where you kind of determine beforehand for each class what the price of that product is going to be. And then on your client level, you would set which price class this client is in. And then when you make your invoice and you select your client, you will also know which price class this client is in. And then automatically, as you select a product, the price for that price class of that client will automatically show up. Okay, so that sounds like a great idea, but how do we do it? Well, let's do this one step at a time. First of all, what we need to do is get at our products and make the different price classes. So there is a price field here right now that's being used, of course, on the invoice to get the price. But because we're going to use different price classes, we're going to first make a list of the different prices. Now, we could create 3 different price fields if we have class A, B, and C. But what if we then one day want to add another price class? That's not a very flexible system. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our system as flexible as possible so that we can add as many price classes afterwards as we want. So first we're going to make a related table to the products table for our price classes. So I'm going to go and make a related table by going to File, Manage, Database. And then we can see the tables that I already have, and I'm just going to make a new one. And I'm going to call this one price category. You can name it whichever you want. I think that's probably okay. So let's double click that one. There are no fields in here, so let's create some. I'm going to start with an ID field, and I'm going to set that to a number field, and I'm going to create that one because every table needs to have its own serial number. So let's do that. And then what is important for the price category? Well, I need to know for which product this is. So I'm going to do a product ID FK, and that's going to be a number field, so that's good. Then I'm going to have to say which category this is, so I'm going to say category. And I'm going to keep this very simple, and I'm just going to make this a text field. Very simple, very basic. You could also make another table for your categories, but that's making it a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. Maybe that is more secure and will make it so that you are less able to make typos, but I'm just going to keep it really simple for this example. And then, of course, you're going to have to set a price, and that's going to be a number field. So I'm going to hit Command N on my Mac to get this to become a number type field. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. Let's look at my relationships. Well, this is a pretty basic setup. I've got my client related to my invoice obviously related to the line items, and the line item, every line item is a product that is related, of course, to the products. And then this price category showing up right next to the product. That's cool because that, of course, is what it's supposed to do. It's going to show the different categories for each product. So I'm going to relate the ID of the product to the product IDFK field right here. Now, when I'm on the product layout, I'm going to want to be able to create records in this related table. So I'm going to double click this one and say allow the creation of price category records in this table via this relationship with the products table. Okay, if I delete a product, then I don't really care about its prices anymore. So I can also check this second box so that when I delete a product, the prices that were related to that product will also be removed. Okay, that looks great. This is our first step. Let's hit OK. Now we have to get that list of prices on here, and that is going to come from a related table. If I want to be on the layout of a certain table and then show related items, I can always add what is called a portal in Filemaker, and I have a portal tool for that. So I'm going to drag out my portal. Seeing as I'm going to be making mostly 3 categories, it doesn't have to be so high. I'm going to say price category. I would like to sort them, sure, sort by category, so they are sorted alphabetically. I don't want to filter. I want to allow the deletion, that's fine. Vertical scrolling, I don't think I'll need that. I'll just use this one, just so you can have a white and a gray line, so that they don't all have the same color. And I'm going to add both the category and the price to my portal. Okay, so as you can see, this is not so clear because these fields don't have borders, and that's because they are minimal edit boxes. If you go to the styles, I don't like that, so I'm going to set these to default. And then maybe my price can be a little smaller. Oh, you know what? I'm going to do this in the other direction. There you go. Okay, cool. So just needs a little title. Okay, cool. Okay, let's have a look. So I could say, for instance, for this product, the price in the category A can be, let's say that it can be $8. Category B could be 9, and then category C could be like 10. And the difficulty now is, or the risk right now is that you're going to type this in wrong, and therefore it won't work anymore. So what you can do is make this one into a drop down box. We're going to make a drop down list. We're going to make a new one, and we're going to say price categories. Okay, so I'm going to use from the price categories field the category, and therefore all the values that are in there are just going to show up. So right now, if I click here, it will kind of show up and give me these nice options. If I start to type, then I will just kind of have one that shows up. If I double click in here and I start to type, it doesn't get auto-completed. So let's try and see if we can set that up. Auto-complete using value list. Okay, let's see what that does. If I would go, see if I start typing now, it'll also kind of give me a suggestion for what value I could choose. Now I don't need this one anymore, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit my layout. I'm going to insert a picture. I've got these kind of cute little images here. I've got an uncheck here. There you go. This will be my delete button. So I'm going to go to button setup. I'm going to do a single step, which is very simple. Delete portal row with the dialog on. Okay, very simple stuff. I'm going to change my cursor to a hand when I hover over that button. And then I've got this one double here. This is not a good one, so I can delete this one. Yep. Okay, this is nice. So that's the first step, creating a related table. And if I'm just going to stick with these 3 categories, if I want, I could even make my portal a little smaller. I could say 3, and then it looks a bit more neat. Okay, cool. So now I can go through my entire product list and basically set the price for each category for all of my products. So I can just select the category, and then I could say maybe this one will be 16, category B will be 18, and category C will be 20. Okay, I can do this now for all of my products, and then we can move on to the next step. Okay, there we go. Let's go to the next step. So now my products all have multiple prices for the multiple categories. Now what I need to determine is my clients and which price category that a certain client is going to be in. So I've made it simple for myself. I got my client A, which is going to be in price category A. So I need a way to select a price category here. So what I can do is I can do this multiple ways. If I want, I can go to File, Manage Database. And first of all, I'm just going to need a new field in here where I can write down the category. So I'm going to say category, and this is going to be a simple text field. And then I could put this field on this layout. I can do this multiple ways. I can just put the field on here. I can say category, create a label, and then it shows up. Now I'm going to want to be a bit specific about which values I put in there. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to use my drop down list, and I'm going to want to use the same I used before, so that way I can select a category. That's cute. If you want, we could do this slightly differently, and we could, instead of using a drop down list, we could maybe use a radio button set. But if you have a lot of different price categories, this might be annoying. You could put it like this, or maybe if you want, you could put it like this as well. Whichever you prefer, whichever you think looks better. I'm always a bit disappointed that this looks a little bit different than on the fields, but in a way it's kind of fun as well, because you can only select one value, and you do have to select a value, and you cannot accidentally not select a value. Now the trick is, let's see, did I do it right here? Okay, so I can give all of these a category. Now category C that I made always kind of had like the highest price and the same price as a as the actual product had. Now if I want to, and this is probably a good thing to do, if I make a new record, this client does not have any value filled in here. Now it's probably best to make sure that you do have him automatically assigned to a category, so that you don't accidentally leave this blank. And the way to do that is to go to File, Manage Database, and then in the client under category, you would probably just automatically set everyone to category C. Make sure that you type it correctly and you don't make any mistakes, because that way if you make a new record, he is automatically in category C, and you cannot accidentally have someone who is in no category. And that's kind of good about these little radio buttons, is that you cannot accidentally not have a value in there. You actually could if you just hit backspace, then that value goes away, but if you don't tell people that that's how you can do that, they won't know. Okay, so I'm gonna delete this one too because I don't need it. So now I've got my 3 different clients in my categories, so that kind of takes care of both of these areas. So I've got my client in a certain price category, and every product has its different price category prices. So the last section now is to actually get those different prices on the invoice. So let's go to the invoices, and it's very simple right now. It's just looking up the price of this product. But ideally, for our products, we will not be using this field anymore, or you could keep it as like a purchase price or something like that. But ideally, we will not be using this field anymore, but I'm going to just leave it right now because it's still being used in this calculation. So what I need to do now, actually I can just go ahead and add a field here. Let's add a field here. Actually, let's not do it this way. Let's copy this one. Let's alt drag this over. Great. And then let's say that from the client, this one will show the category of the client. So that way I can do category, or I could say maybe even price category. That way I can see on my invoice which kind of client I'm dealing with and which kind of prices I know he's going to get. Now, I don't want to have to manually deal with this. So when I select a product for this client, I automatically want this product to get the category B price. So how do I do that? Well, my category of prices has basically, and I can't see that here, but I can see that if I were to go here, has basically got 2 important values that I need. It's the product ID and the category. Now, the way my file has been set up logically is my line item is related to my product through the product ID field, because it needs to get that product price in here, and that is gotten in my price lookup field as a lookup. As soon as you create a line item record with a product ID in it, that price is being looked up through this relationship from this table. But now what I need to do is this price lookup needs to use both the product ID and the client category to get the price from the category for this product in there. So that looks kind of tricky. And it's also stuff that is all very far away from my line item table, because yeah, the product ID is here, but my categories is all the way over there. That's not gonna work. And I cannot make like relationships from this table to that table using fields from different tables. So that's a huge mess. That is just looking like it's extremely complicated, but actually it's not. First thing I need to do is I need to get my relevant fields all together in this line item table. And my relevant fields, of course, are the product ID and the category. Those are the two pieces of information that I need in order to get that correct price. So one piece of information is already in here. The piece of information that is missing is over there, and I'm going to want to get that from here in here. Very simple. I can just do the same thing as I'm doing with my price. I can create a lookup or an auto enter calculation that gets my category in here. So let's do that. Let's go to my line items. Let's do a price cat lookup. Let's call that, that's going to be a text field, so we can do that one of two ways. We can either create a lookup or a calculated value. Doesn't really matter, I think, in this case. So let's do from line item to client, and let's look up the category. Okay, and that way we should be able to get the category for that client in our line item table. Let's try it out and let's see if it works. Let's go to our invoice layout and let's add that new line items record field in here to see if it's working. So let's make that portal a bit bigger. Let's add a field here. Let's get it from the line item table, and it's the price category lookup. I'm not going to create a label for this one. The labels, well, I'll just copy one from here. Price cat lookup. Okay, and I'm not getting any borders here, so I'm going to change the style to default. Let's have a look. Now, this is empty, which is kind of annoying, but it's kind of logical because these records already existed, so they haven't done their lookup. So if I select a new product here, it's going to say category B, and that is because this client is in the category B. If I go to an invoice for another client who's in category A and I add a product, then it's saying category A in here because that's the client here. So now this value that was far away in the client's table has now been moved into my line items table, and now all of a sudden in my line items table I have everything I need. I have my product ID and I have my category, both items that I need to get the correct price from here, because with those two I can get the correct price. Now my price category here is far away. I cannot directly relate that one to this one, but what I can do is create a new table occurrence for this guy and then use that. So I'm going to use these two green plus signs to duplicate, and what I usually like to do is when I start duplicating, I like to give them the same color so that you know that these are actually from the same. Now you might think that I've just created a new table, but that's not true. If you hover your mouse over here in the left corner, you will see that the source table is price cat. If I go on price cat 2 here, it says that the source table is also price cat. I have not created a new table. I've just created a new occurrence of the one table. If I go into my tables here, it will say price cat. There is only one price cat, but if you look at the occurrences in the graph, there are now price cat and price cat 2. So two occurrences in the graph of that one table. So that means that all of the information that's in here, all those prices of all those different categories for all those different products, all that data is also in here. The only reason that I'm making a new table occurrence is because I'm going to relate this in a different way to this table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my product ID of K. I'm going to relate it to my product ID of K, and then this price category lookup is going to be related to my category. And now for every line item that I make and I select a product, then I will have both the product and the price category in there, and through this relationship they will give me the correct price for that product. Now I'm going to give this another name here, line item lookup. Sure, and if you want, we could test this as well. We could maybe put that field on here. We could just go ahead and expand this. Put this here from the line item, from the price category line item lookup. I will select the price. And then I'll just hit OK, make it default. And then you can see, so I have my product selected, product 3, I have my category A in here, and it says 20. Now if I turn this into B, B, then it changes to 25. So this is always going to give me the price for that product in that category. So that's cool. Now I don't need to display this here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that one. Then I'm going to go to File, Manage Database, and I'm going to change in my line items the price lookup. I don't want to look up my price anymore from the product table, but in this case I want to get it from the price category line item lookup. I gave it such a long name so that I would easily be able to find it back, and the price field is of course where the price is at, and that's what I'm going to do now. So now of course be careful with existing records because they haven't really updated yet, but now that I know that I've got a category A and I'm gonna add like another product 3 in here, then it shows up now with a different price because it has category A here. This one is still category B, so I'm going to change this back to an A. And then as you can see, the price updates. So now as I start adding my products, they will all be for category A and we'll get the category A price. Now if I go to another client here, this is my category B client, and again watch out with existing records, I'm just going to delete these just in case. Just add a product, it will get the category B price, and that's cool. Now I don't need this lookup field on here anymore, so I can make this nice and clean again. And there you go. Now if I ever want to have this system be very flexible and I want to add another price category, I can simply do that. I can go to my products, I can maybe expand this portal one more step, make it a little bit bigger. I could go for category D and I could say this will be a price of 35. And then I can just fill that out for every product. And as soon as I have done so, I can go to my clients, I could create a new client, and well, my field here is a little small because I've kind of left it with no room for expansion, but if I just make it like this, then I can always add as many categories as I want, and then I can put someone in the category D. So let's do category D, and let's say Church Road. I probably already have one of those, but who cares? So now I could go to my invoices and I could select, I can make a new invoice for my category D client. I guess I named it a bit different than the others. But what could happen now is if I select a product, now my price here is not being looked up. If I add another product, let's say this one, again, my price isn't being looked up. But if I, let's see if I can add another one. Now all of a sudden my price is being looked up. So there is still a tiny little problem there. And let's see if we can find out what's happening. If we expand our line items again and add our line item price category lookup, we can see that it hasn't been looked up in these first two cases. Let's set this one back to default. The reason for that is probably when I selected my client here, it needs to kind of be saved and committed first before my lookup can actually really work. Sometimes you have to help FileMaker and actually save or refresh, especially when you're working with calculations over relationships. So what we could do is just kind of force the moment that you change a value in here, you can kind of force FileMaker to kind of refresh and commit, etc. So we're going to make a new script for that. And we're going to call this one, first of all, we're going to call this one commit, just to see if we can get away with that one. So we're going to call this one commit records requests with dialog off, and then we're going to save and see if that is enough. So let's go onto this field. You got to be sure that you use the bottom field, because that's actually the field that you are going to be editing. That's the one with the drop down on, and we're going to set a script trigger. And because this is a drop down, we're going to say on object modify, we're going to do commit. And committing is basically if you change the value in this field, when you commit, you're kind of, it's the same as tabbing out of there or just hitting return so that you save the value in that field. Let's try this out and see if this is enough. So let's do a new record. Let's select a client. And then let's select a product. Yeah, that seems to be sufficient because now my category is showing up straight from the get-go. So sometimes when these things don't work, especially with calculations and lookups over relationships, you do have to make FileMaker commit. Now, if this is still not working now, you can always add the script step of refresh. And the refresh window, that's the script step you could also use, has an option to flush cached join results. And that is really for stuff that kind of goes, sits in a related table. Sometimes FileMaker kind of remembers that stuff and it needs to be refreshed. But in this case, we don't need that. So we're going to just keep it with a simple commit. We're going to put this one back on top of the other one. There we go. Okay, and now if we make a new record for our client from the category D and we add a product 1, it's going to give me my category D price. So that's kind of cool. I can get rid of this one again, close this one up a bit. And there we go. So as you can see, very flexible. You can add categories as much as you want, and then you could assign your client to a certain category and make sure that they are always in a certain category. Because if you say no category and you kind of put nothing in this field, that's not going to work very well when you make a invoice, because then if you have no category in here, if you add a product, it's also not going to come up with any kind of price. And then if you add a whole bunch of products and only then do you realize that you don't have a category, then you still have to go in there later on to give this guy a category. And then when you go back to your invoice, he does have a category now, but these prices not having a category. So that's kind of annoying. So you do have to kind of make sure that you do it right from the get-go. Okay, I hope that that is helpful and that taught you a little something about FileMaker. A neat little trick, I would hope. All right, bye. If you guys want to learn a ton more about FileMaker, you can head over to my Udemy page where I've got a bunch of entire FileMaker courses online. You can follow them and basically we make entire FileMaker systems from scratch, and I'll take you on the entire process step by step. There is even one that is completely free, so you can just follow that free of charge, and that is a beginner tutorial where we make an entire contacts database. That's a really fun one that you can follow that can teach you the basics of FileMaker. So head over there by following the links in the description, and I'll see you guys there.